Hi there guys, Reaper here and I'm back with another painting video. This week I am painting what I thought was just a standard wizard from the Bones 4 Kickstarter. It turns out this is Kelainen Darkmantle, an evil wizard that Reaper only sells in metal at the moment. The Bones variant that I am painting has not actually been released yet. The mini has been primed in German Panzer Grey, same as all my minis will be until I actually run out of this colour, as I don't have anything else. With this mini though, I'm going to be showing how I paint different types of white, starting with cool white. I've started with Wolf Grey as this will cover over the primer a lot easier than the lighter colours that I'm going to be using. Now that Wolf Grey is dried and finished, I am going to move on to covering the entire area with electric blue. If I used this colour straight away, it would have taken probably several layers just to get the opacity that I need in order to paint white. So the Wolf Grey works almost like a primer, but it's just a step up from the actual primer. That will be it for electric blue. Next colour is Ice Storm, and this is going to be the first highlight type of layer. Most of the cloak will be covered in this layer, but only the deepest of recesses are going to stay with the electric blue, as I'm using the electric blue as the shade colour, as we're not using a wash on this. Next up is matte white, and this is covering a large chunk of the cloak. This is the main problem I find with painting white. There are no highlights for white, so the bulk of the area is coloured in the brightest colour. With white though, I would recommend doing several layers as it tends to go on rather transparent. For layering in this style though, that actually helps a lot, as the next layer will just be a little less coverage and you'll work your way up to like the brightest white in order to get a good blend and still have it almost highlighted in a sense. Now that cool white has been finished, I move on to doing the warmer white for the robes, starting off with bone white. As you can probably tell once this starts going on, coverage is not that great. This actually took about 4 layers to get a good opacity that we need. This is why I used the Wolf Grey on the blue, but I don't have anything in between to use for this one, so I'm just going straight to bone white and just going for it. Once the bone white is all dry, I move on to grey matter beige. This colour is almost white, but it's still got a subtle warmth to it. Generally, if I'm painting something that's sort of more detail light, that's meant to be white, I would use this colour and then highlight it with pure white. For painting robes, however, I'm using this as more of a layer, leaving just the bone white in the recesses to give a bit more depth to the robe still. Now that grey matter beige is finished up, I move on to matte white, and this is for the upper areas of the robes, trying to keep a bit of a gradient visible. As with the cool white, this colour can be used in multiple layers, covering less and less each time, just to give it a bit more opacity as it gets to the highest points. And as you will see, I do go back and do another layer on the cool white, just to give it that more oomph in the highest peaks. And that would be it for both types of white. Now I'm moving on to more of the details of the mini, starting with the skin, with which I'm going to be using Elf Skin by Vallejo. And that will be it for the skin tone. Next up we move on to Vallejo's Leather Brown, and this is for the leather parts on the mini, along with the staff and the shoulder pads. I'm doing the staff and the shoulder pads now as they're eventually going to be gold, but gold doesn't cover overly well and it goes really well over brown though. So this is a good colour to start with if you want to do something in gold. Now that leather brown is done, I move on to the bottle and the smoke coming out of the bottle with angel green as the base layer for this. Next up is greedy gold for all of the gold areas, namely the staff, shoulder pad and the hilt on the sword that he has around his belt. With the gold finished up, I move on to green skin for the highlight on the bottle and a large highlight on the smoke, just to give it a bit more separation. And that will be it for greenskin. Next up is matte black for the hair and the beard. I also decided to do the sword sheath in this just to separate it from the rest of the actual leather parts. With this color though, I'm sure you're going to be aware you need to be very careful, as getting black off of any of these colors is going to be a nightmare. With the black all done, I move on to jade green, and this is for the highlight on the smoke, just to give it a bit more separation from the bottle. I also go over the gems on the staff just to make them pop that bit more. Next up is shining silver for all the metallic details on his belt and the pouch. I also do a small edge highlight on his shoulder pads. I do start to do this on the staff, but then decide not to, as it will take too much away from the gold, I feel, for the staff. And that will be it for silver. Next up is dungeon grey, and this is a highlight for all the matte black parts, just picking out the raised areas to give it a bit more depth. for the only wash on the Mini, and this will be flesh wash covering everything apart from the whites. With the wash finished and dried, I come back in with Elf Skin Tone just to bring the hands back to where they should be. The face didn't get stained anywhere near as much, so it only needed a small minor tweak just to make it look more like it should do. The jade green on the smoke got darkened down, so I came back in and brought some of it back up, leaving some of it as the darker tone just to add a bit more variation in the smoke. As with all metallics and washes, the gold has lost a lot of its shine after it's been washed, so I'll just come back in and touch up a few areas of greedy gold, not looking for full coverage this time though. Finally, I move on to matte black to tidy up the base and put 2 black dots in the eye sockets to create a frame around the eyes that we're going to be doing next. Now for the third time on this Mini, I pull out matte white, and this is just to dot in 2 eyeballs, leaving the black frame around the outside. I do also do 2 black pupils off camera just to finish those eyes off. He doesn't look such an evil wizard now since he's got his white robes on. Hope you guys enjoyed seeing how I painted these whites, and like and subscribe if you did enjoy, but most importantly, don't forget to be kind to each other. I will catch you in the next one.